Stop everything you're doing. Take a deep breath and answer with all the sincerity you have the courage to face. Are you happy with who you are? Or do you spend your days wondering why you are not like those people you see around? Because I need to tell you a harsh truth. As long as you keep comparing yourself to others, you are signing, every day, your own sentence of unhappiness. Social comparison is a silent prison. A cell built inside your mind whose bars are invisible, but as solid as concrete and iron. They are bars made of flawless photos on Instagram, success stories on LinkedIn, fit bodies, marriages that look like they are straight out of fairy tales, trips that seem like perfume commercials. And every time you take a peek, every time you scroll through the feed and measure your life against someone else's, you reinforce those bars. You make them thicker, taller, until the day comes when you look in the mirror and no longer see yourself. You only see everything you are not. Do you know what is crueler? It is that this seems so normal, so automatic, that you don't even realize it is happening. Since childhood, you have been taught that you need to be the best, that you need to be the fastest, the most beautiful, the smartest, the most successful. You have been taught that there is an invisible list of things you need to achieve to be someone worthy of respect and admiration. Good grades, a diploma, a good job, a nice car, an enviable relationship, a beautiful house, and, if possible, a perfect body too. And that's where the poison lies. Because when you compare yourself, you are not just wishing for what the other has. You are saying, without realizing it, that who you are is not enough, that you are wrong, that your life, the way it is, does not deserve to be lived. And that, my friend, is one of the most dangerous thoughts anyone can carry. Arthur Schopenhauer said that envy always sees what is above, never what is below. And he was right, because there will always be someone richer, more beautiful, smarter, more talented, more charismatic, or at least someone who can seem all of that on social media. And the more you look up, the lower you feel. It's a cruel math that never adds up. But let me tell you something that perhaps no one has told you. The deeper problem of comparison is not just the envy nor the resentment it generates. It is something much more treacherous. It disconnects you from your own voice, from your own essence. You start living like an actor on a stage, playing a role that society, family, friends, and influencers expect from you. You get lost, and you end up living a life that is not yours. And then, when you lay your head on the pillow, even after a full day, even after receiving compliments, likes, recognition, you feel that emptiness, that pang in your chest, that feeling of always being behind, always falling short, always owing something. And then you start to ask yourself, why can't I be happy like they are? I am here to tell you that there is another way. There is a way out of this prison. But it's not easy. It's not quick. And above all, it's not a path you can walk on autopilot. But before I show you this path, I need one thing from you, your attention. So stay with me until the end of this video. Because today, I want to show you that you are not condemned to live trapped in other people's lives. You can still live your own life and discover that within it, there are already enough reasons to be happy, even if for now, you cannot see it. Comparison is, at its core, an impossible game to win. A game that seems to have clear rules, but in practice is always manipulating the score against you. It's as if, from the day we are born, someone has placed us in a race. A race where you are told that if you run fast enough, if you work hard, if you dedicate yourself, you will reach a place called happiness. And then, without realizing it, you spend your life running. Running to have the ideal body, to have the perfect partner, to earn more money, to travel more, to be more admired. And every time you think you are getting there, someone runs past you, And then they tell you, did you see? So-and-so already bought his apartment. Such and such is already married and has a child. So-and-so just got promoted. And you, what are you doing with your life? Social comparison is cruel because it doesn't give you time to breathe. You might be happy with something you achieved until the moment you discover that someone has achieved something greater. You feel good about your body until you see someone thinner, stronger, more defined. You are proud of your job until you meet someone who is apparently earning double and traveling the world. Arthur Schopenhauer said that envy always sees what is above, never what is below. And that is exactly it. You don't look at those who are fighting worse battles than yours. You don't look at those who are behind you in the race. You only look ahead at those who are, apparently, winning the game. And that is the trap, because when you only look up, you inevitably start to feel small, insufficient, behind. And there's one more thing no one tells you. In this game, the rules are not clear. Because what does it mean to win? What does it mean to succeed? For some, it's making money. For others, it's having freedom. For some, it's having family, children, stability. For others, it's having fame, recognition, power. But when you live trapped in comparison, you don't even ask yourself what winning means to you. You simply absorb the standards of others and start measuring yourself by them. And that's where the game becomes impossible. Because even if you achieve something, the bar changes. There will always be someone who does more, has more, seems happier. And the higher you climb, the more people appear above you. The top is infinite. It's like chasing the horizon. No matter how much you advance, it never gets closer. And you know what's even worse? Social media has turned this into a psychological hell. Before, you compared your life to that of your neighbor, your co-worker, a close relative. Now, you are comparing the behind the scenes of your life with the edited highlights of millions of people around the world. You see someone smiling on a paradise beach and think that's the person's entire life. You don't see the debts, the anxiety, the conflicts, the loneliness that exist behind that photo. But even knowing this, deep down, something in you believes that other people's lives are better than yours. And that's where the cycle of mental torture begins. You don't allow yourself to be happy with what you have because you always think something is missing. You start to punish yourself, criticize yourself, demand more from yourself, and, without realizing it, you begin to treat yourself like a failure. Because in the game of comparison, the other is always winning, and you are always losing. But let me tell you something. This game is rigged. It has been manipulated from the start to make you feel lacking, to make you consume more, work more, run more, and it will never let you win. That's why today I want to challenge you to ask yourself, who defined the rules of this game you are playing? Who decided what success means for you? Do you really want the things you think you want? Or do you just think you want them because everyone else seems to want them too? Because the first step to freeing yourself from this prison is realizing that maybe you don't even want to be playing this game. But there is another, even darker side to this comparison. It starts to erode something even more valuable within you: your self-esteem and your connection to your own essence. And that is precisely what I want to talk to you about in the next part. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. The worst trap of social comparison is not just making you feel small compared to others. It is something much crueler and deeper. It turns your self-esteem into a hostage. When you start measuring your worth by the standards, achievements, and applause of others, you hand over to the world the power to decide how much your life is worth. And there is no more silent slavery than this. Think with me. From an early age, we were taught that our value is out there, that it lies in the grades you get in school, in the praise you receive from teachers, in the recognition from your parents. Later, they said it's in the job you get, in the salary you earn, in the number of likes you receive, in the approval of others. It's as if all the time you have to present evidence that you deserve to exist. And this consumes you, because every time you don't receive the recognition you expected, every time someone around you shines brighter, you feel like it's a failure on your part, as if there's something wrong with you. This is how comparison becomes an invisible chain. You become a slave to looks, opinions, numbers. Every like, every positive comment, every sign of approval is like a dose of drug that keeps you functioning. And every criticism, every silence, every moment when no one seems to notice you is a stab in the soul. Arthur Schopenhauer understood this deeply. He said that the greatest folly is to place our well-being in the hands of others. Because as long as you depend on others' opinions to feel good, you will live on an emotional roller coaster. One day, you are on top, feeling invincible because someone praised you. The next, you are at the bottom of the pit because you didn't get the response or applause you expected. And the most insidious part is that this dependency seeps into the smallest details. You start dressing to impress. You say things you don't believe just to be accepted. You post photos that have nothing to do with your reality just to seem happy. You mold every piece of your being to fit into a shape that wasn't made for you. And in the meantime, your inner voice gets suffocated because you no longer know what you like, what you want, what you dream. Everything becomes performance. Everything becomes an attempt to please. Even your sadness is calibrated not to disturb too much, not to seem like weakness. Social comparison not only creates envy, it destroys your ability to see who you really are. It convinces you that your story, your pace, your achievements are insignificant if they are not greater or better than those of others. And this, my friend, is the perfect recipe for living eternally dissatisfied. Self-esteem becomes a hostage because it comes to have a condition. I can only love myself if I am better, more beautiful, richer, smarter, happier than the other. And this will never happen fully, because there will always be someone who surpasses you in something. Always. And this is where the greater danger lies, because when you start to believe that you are not enough, you stop fighting for your own dreams. You stop celebrating your small victories. You convince yourself that you are behind, that you are lesser, that it's not worth it. And you begin to live in a constant state of anxiety, guilt, and fear. The result? A whole life wasted trying to prove something to people who many times aren't even paying attention to you. But there is something even more painful that happens when our self-esteem becomes a hostage of comparison. It is what happens when we start to lose touch with our own inner voice, with what makes us unique, authentic, true. And that is what I want to talk to you about in the next part. Do you know that voice that whispers to you what truly makes you happy? That voice that tells you what you really like, what makes you vibrate, what brings you peace? Well, when you live immersed in comparison, that voice gets quieter and quieter, until it almost disappears. And when your inner voice falls silent, you start living on autopilot. You wake up, work, consume, post, smile for the photo. Everything mechanically, everything to maintain an image, everything to avoid the fear of being seen as less. Arthur Schopenhauer said that the greatest wisdom is knowing how to be content with what one is, without wishing to appear what one is not. But how do you find this wisdom in a world that teaches you to always desire more, to always want to be someone different? Society pushes you into ready-made roles. It tells you that happiness is having a certain body, a certain status, a certain bank account. And then, without realizing it, you start pursuing goals that were never yours. You begin to study what you don't like, to work in what you hate, to relate to people who don't match with you, just because it's the right thing. And that's when suffering sets in. Because living disconnected from your own essence is living divided. On the outside, you maintain a mask. On the inside, you are slowly falling apart. And the more you distance yourself from who you really are, the emptier your inner world becomes. It's as if you built a beautiful house on the outside, but with empty, cold, dark rooms. And every time you try to take refuge inside it, you find nothing but echo. Social media has worsened this brutally, because now, at every moment, you are exposed to edited versions of other people's lives, people who seem happier, more beautiful, more fulfilled. And the more you consume these images, the more your own life seems dull, small, insignificant. You start to doubt your choices. Am I in the right relationship? Did I choose the wrong profession? Am I not ambitious enough? Am I behind in everything? And every time you give in to these doubts, you push your inner voice a little further away, until one day, you can no longer answer the simplest and deepest question of all. What do I really want? And here's the truth that almost no one tells you. As long as your inner voice is silent, you will be vulnerable. Vulnerable to manipulations, vulnerable to standards that are not yours, vulnerable to spending years of your life chasing achievements that, deep down, have absolutely nothing to do with you. That's why so many people reach their 30s, 40s, 50s with an apparently perfect life, but with a devastating emptiness inside, because they spent years living to meet external expectations, and they forgot to ask, what is important to me? What makes me happy? What makes me feel alive? As long as you don't reconnect with that voice, you won't know who you are, and those who don't know who they are will never know what they want. But there is a way to regain that connection. There is a way to silence the noise outside and start hearing the sound of your own soul. It's not easy. It requires courage, patience, and above all, a willingness to question everything you learned to call truth. And that's exactly what we will explore in the next part. There is a reason why social comparison is so powerful, so persistent, and so hard to let go of. It is not just an individual flaw. It is a carefully constructed and maintained trap by the society we live in. Because the world we are embedded in, the culture, the media, the economic market, social networks, has a huge interest in keeping you dissatisfied. Yes, you heard that right. There is a whole system that thrives while you think you are not enough. Let's start with the basics. Capitalism, in its most brutal form, needs one thing to keep spinning. It needs you to want more, to desire something new all the time. Because if you woke up tomorrow absolutely happy with who you are, with what you have, with what you do, you would stop consuming. And that would be a tragedy for those who profit from selling products, services, and above all, dreams. That's why the market feeds on your comparison. It plants in your mind the idea that there is always a higher level, a place you have not yet reached, a body you do not yet have, an experience you have not yet lived, a happiness that is always ahead, but never here. Look around. Commercials, ads, influencers, movies, series. They all tell the same story. You can be better. You should be better. And for that, just buy what we are selling. Arthur Schopenhauer spoke about this in the 19th century when he said that life oscillates like a pendulum between pain and boredom. And the system we live in understood this oscillation very well. It makes you feel pain, the pain of not being enough, and then offers you products or experiences that promise to relieve that pain, even if just for a few moments. And when that effect wears off, there you are again, immersed in comparison, feeling smaller, ready to consume more. But it doesn't stop there. Social media emerged as the perfect fuel for this machine. Because now it's not just advertising that makes you feel small. It's ordinary people, just like you, posting lives that seem perfect. And you start to feel like you are falling behind, that you are failing, that you are not living as you should. But what you see on social media is just the showcase. It's the illuminated part of the stage. You don't see the backstage. You don't see the tears after the selfie, the debts after the trip, the existential crises after Black Friday. Yet you still compare yourself. And this comparison is not your fault. It is a carefully nurtured social mechanism. Because as long as you are trying to match or surpass others, you will continue spinning in the wheel of consumption, the search for validation, emotional slavery. The high-performance culture also reinforces this. We live in a world that glorifies the hustle, the grind, the waking up at 5 in the morning to work while others sleep. And those who cannot keep up with this pace start to feel lazy, unsuccessful, mediocre. And again, they compare themselves. And all of this creates a society of people disconnected from themselves. People who no longer know what they want because they are too busy trying to achieve what they were told they should want. Schopenhauer also said, "Happiness belongs to those who are sufficient unto themselves." But how to be sufficient unto oneself in a world that does everything to convince you that you are not enough? The answer is not outside. It is within. But before we get there, we need to take one more step. We need to understand that it is not enough to just turn off your phone or stop following profiles that harm you. True liberation requires a radical shift in perspective, and that is what we will explore in the next part. If what you're hearing resonates with you, you'll find real value in my ebooks. Beyond the Shadow breaks down Jung's core ideas, while Dialogues with the Unconscious gives you a 30-day path to apply them in your life. Both are linked in the pinned comment. If there is one game you should learn to play in life, it is the game against yourself. Not against the world, not against others' success, not against the projections people post on social media, but against who you were yesterday. The liberation from social comparison does not happen simply by turning off your phone or abandoning social networks, because the poison of comparison is already inside you, planted for years, sometimes decades, by external voices that repeated endlessly that you should be more beautiful, more wealthy, thinner, more successful, more popular. The antidote to this is not in the silence of the world outside, but in the courage to make a radical choice, to stop using others as a yardstick, and start measuring yourself only by yourself. And I know this sounds simple, but it is not. It is revolutionary, because it means redefining all your metrics of success. It means asking yourself, honestly, what do I really want from my life? What makes sense to me, and not just what I was told I should do? What makes me feel alive, and not just what seems impressive to others? Arthur Schopenhauer said that the greatest happiness is to be sufficient for oneself. But most people have never even bothered to discover what that means. Because it takes effort, it requires confrontation. It demands that you look at the parts of yourself that may have been dormant for years, suffocated by the obligation to fit in. And here's a brutal truth. As long as you live trying to win in others' game, you will lose. Always. Because in the game of comparison, the yardstick is movable, the rules change all the time, and the judges are invisible and merciless. The only game you can truly win is the one where the opponent is who you were yesterday, where the parameter is your own progress, where the prize is living a life aligned with what you believe and value. Think about it. Imagine that you start using your own values as a yardstick, that you begin to measure success not in money, but in free time, or not in the number of likes, but in the depth of your relationships, or not in external achievements, but in how peacefully you sleep at night, knowing you are being true to yourself. This changes everything, because when you start playing this game, something extraordinary happens. Envy loses its power, resentment disappears, the weight of comparison dissolves, because the other may be making millions, traveling the world, living stories worthy of cinema, and that's okay. You stop feeling like you are falling behind, because you understand that you are not even in the same race. They are different tracks. They are different games. And let me tell you, this is where true happiness begins. Not that noisy happiness, which needs to be posted and liked, but that silent one, which arises from the fact that you feel whole, living according to your own yardstick. When you choose to measure your life by comparing with yourself, you start to celebrate small victories that you previously didn't even notice. You realize that you are more patient than you were a year ago, that you are emotionally stronger, that you can say no to things you don't want, that you are closer to who you really are. And this generates an internal confidence that no one can steal. No economic crisis, no external criticism, no algorithm. It is at this moment that you understand something that seems simple, but is powerful. That the meaning of life is not in defeating others, but in transforming yourself every day into your best version. Even if no one applauds, even if no one sees, but I know you must be wondering, how to start? How to abandon the game of comparison and create your own criteria for success if the entire society is programmed to pull you back into this trap? Let's explore these steps in the next part. Social comparison is not going to simply disappear from your life. You will continue to encounter people who seem more successful, more beautiful, more happy. You will keep being bombarded with images of perfect lives, extraordinary achievements, sculptural bodies, fairy tale relationships. And do you know why? Because that is the game society plays. And you are not the one who will stop this game, but you can choose not to play. You can decide not to measure yourself by someone else's ruler anymore, and start living under the only ruler that matters, yours. True freedom is not in eliminating all external voices, because they will always exist. True freedom is in making your inner voice louder than all the others. It is in recognizing your own worth, even when no one is watching. It is in building a life that makes sense to you, even if no one applauds. Arthur Schopenhauer said that the less we care about the opinion of others, the more peacefully we will live. And he was right. But I go further. The more aligned you are with yourself, the more you will realize that the opinion of others, most of the time, means absolutely nothing. Perhaps you are wondering now, but how do I start? How do I create my own criteria for success if I have spent my whole life believing I needed to live according to the gaze of others? I will tell you. You start in the simplest way, but also the bravest, by asking yourself every day who you want to be, not what others want from you, not what is trending on the internet, but who you, deep down, want to be. You start by allowing yourself to hear your inner voice, paying attention to those little sparks of joy that arise when you do something you love. In the moments when time seems to stop, because you are so immersed in something that makes you feel alive, you start by freeing yourself from the need for approval, stopping the search for applause, and starting to seek peace. And most importantly, you start by accepting that there will be bad days, that there will be setbacks, that there will be moments when the noise outside seems louder than your own voice. But even on those days, you can choose not to abandon yourself. Even on those days, you can differentiate the negative noise of comparison and not be a prey to it. Because in the end, the only comparison that matters is with who you were yesterday. The only game worth playing is the game of becoming your best version. The only applause that matters is the one you give to yourself when you lay your head on the pillow, at peace, knowing that you lived true to what you believe. If this video made you reflect, I want to ask you one thing. Share with me in the comments which area of your life you compare yourself the most. Is it at work? Is it about appearance? Is it in relationships? Often, expressing yourself with words can help you and help others who are going through the same. And if this video brought you clarity, If it helped you see something different, leave your like. Subscribe to the channel and watch the next video to continue this journey. I'll see you there.